Appreciate the job done by AAIB, a very commendable job. It was a very challenging task. In fact, for the first time, safely securing the black box and trying to decode the data and everything being done in India itself in the lab in Delhi for AAIB, first of its kind. So I'd like to appreciate all the efforts they have put in to do a very transparent, very mature, professional way the investigation has been done, and also all the international protocols have also been respected and followed. And regarding the report, this is a preliminary report right now, and from the ministry we are analyzing the report, but I think it would be better if we can comment on it once the final report comes in. So we are coordinating with AIB also. Whatever support or resources they need, we will be providing to them, but AIB will be the primary investigating agency into this, and we are hoping that as soon as possible the final report also comes in so that we can arrive at some conclusions.
Sir, conversation.
The report has only stated within that there are multiple other things also that need to be looked into before preparing the final report. So we want the final report to come in to look at things. So let us wait till then.
Sir, what do you think?
Don't think we should jump into any conclusions on this. I truly believe we have the most wonderful workforce in terms of pilots and the crew in the whole world. I have to appreciate all the efforts the pilots and the crew in this country are putting into the aviation. They are the backbone of this civil aviation. They are the primary resource of civil aviation, and we care for the welfare and the well-being of our pilots also. So let's not jump to any conclusions at this stage. Let us wait for the final report.
Sir, what was your message?
Justice has to be done. So I know it is a very difficult time for the family members, but from our side, whatever best we can do from the ministry, we are trying to assist in that. See, these are technical things, and that is why we have the investigation agency. And once they are clear with something, they are going to produce the final report. And at this stage, it will be very immature for me also to comment on it. The preliminary has come in, but for something concrete, we have to wait for the final report. And we will assist the AIB in getting it done soon.
आणि गेले 1 महिन्याच्या आतमध्येच त्याचा एक प्राथमिक अहवाल त्यांनी दिलाय. हा काही अंतिम अहवाल नाहीये, त्यामुळे आता त्याच्यामध्ये अधिक काही बोलण्यासारखं नाही. पण जे काही संभाषण समोर आलंय, जे काही त्याच्यामध्ये आता प्राथमिक जी चर्चा झाली आहे किंवा अहवालात काय आलंय, ते AIBचं हेच म्हणणं आहे की हा अंतिम रिपोर्ट नाहीये. अजून खूप काही त्याच्यामध्ये चौकशी बाकी आहे. खूप काही गोष्टी पुढच्या चौकशीतनं समोर येतील. त्यामुळे ही एक ऑटोनॉमस अथॉरिटी आहे. त्यांच्या कामामध्ये कुठे इंटरफेरन्स केला जात नाही. त्यामुळे इंटरफेरन्स केला नाही म्हणून निष्पक्षपणे ते चौकशी करतायत. मला एवढंच वाटतं की आज जगामध्ये आपले पायलट असतील, क्रू असतील, यांचं खूप चांगलं नाव आहे आणि त्यामुळे प्राथमिक याच्यात तर हे नक्की दिसतं की याच्यामध्ये काहीही असं वेगळं काही घडलं असं काही वाटत नाही. पण तरीही मी हेच सांगेन की याच्यामध्ये विनाकारण काही वेळेला अशा बातम्या चालल्या जातात की ब्लॅक बॉक्स हा विदेशात जाणार, विदेशामध्ये चौकशी केली जाणार, त्याचं हे केलं. पण आत्मनिर्भर भारत यालाच आपण म्हणतो की आता कुठल्याही प्रकारे इतक्या ऍडव्हान्स टेक्नॉलॉजी, ऍडव्हान्स असलेल्या लॅब्स आपल्याकडे अवेलेबल आहेत. त्यामुळे पूर्णपणे देशामध्येच त्याची या ब्लॅक बॉक्सची चौकशी झाली, त्याच्यातला डेटा काढला गेला. मला एवढंच म्हणायचं की कुठल्याही आधारे चुकीच्या विषयात, इतका सेन्सिटिव्ह विषय आहे, संवेदनशील विषय आहे, तर थोडी आपण सगळ्यांनी पण काळजी घेऊया. अजून बरंच काही पुढच्या अहवालात येईल, पण माझा प्राथमिकच हा सगळा अहवाल आहे, अंतिम अहवाल नाही. त्यामुळे ह्याच्यात आता काही बोलणं योग्य नाही. पण पुढच्या काही काळामध्ये अजून त्याच्यातल्या सविस्तर माहिती आपल्या समोर येईल. अंतिम अहवाल नाही. अंतिम अहवाल असेल तर आपल्याला काहीतरी निष्कर्ष काढता येतो. ह्याला आता निष्कर्ष काहीच काढता येणार नाही, का आता हा प्राथमिक अहवाल आहे. बघा, वेळेच्या आधी 1 महिन्याच्या आतमध्ये प्राथमिक अहवाल येतो. हे आपल्या संस्थांचं यश आहे, AIBचं यश आहे की एका कमी वेळेमध्ये इतकी चौकशी, ब्लॅक बॉक्स मिळवणं, तिथला तुमचा व्हॉइस रेकॉर्डर आहे तो मिळवणं, हे सोपं काम नव्हतं. ज्या ठिकाणी खरं तर पाहिल्यानंतर लक्षात येतं, जेव्हा आम्ही तिथं जागेवरती होतो, हे सगळं शोधणं. बघा, मागच्या काळामध्ये साधा हेलिकॉप्टरचा ऍक्सिडेंट जरी झाला देशामध्ये कुठे, तरी ब्लॅक बॉक्स हा बाहेरच्या देशात पाठवायला लागायचा. आता ते नाही होत, आपल्याकडेच सगळं होतं आता. आणि म्हणून मला असं वाटतं की थोडीशी काही ना काही एक ठोस माहितीच्या आधारेच मला असं वाटतं आपण सगळ्यांनी थोडी, मला या सगळ्याची माझी विनंती आहे की आपण थोडंसं सहकार्य राहावं आणि जे देशाच्या हिताचं आहे किंवा देशासाठी कुठल्याही पद्धतीचं आपल्या देशाच्या याला बाधा येणार नाही हिताला, अशा पद्धतीनं सगळ्यांनी आपण काम करूया. पण आता हा माझं एवढंच शेवटी म्हणणं आहे की हा प्राथमिक अहवाल आहे, अंतिम अहवाल यायचा आहे. कधी याल? ज्यावेळेला तुमच्याकडे फायनल रिपोर्ट येईल. ते फायनल रिपोर्ट नाही आली, फायनल रिपोर्ट नाही, तर हे प्राथमिक अहवाल आहे. त्यामुळे आत्ताची माहिती आहे ती सगळ्यांसमोर आलेली आहे. त्याच्यातनं निष्कर्ष काहीच काढू शकत नाही आपण. तेव्हा निष्कर्ष काढायला आपल्याला अंतिम अहवालची वाट पाहावी लागेल.
मेरे लड़के का नाम भाविक महेश्वरी था। वो इस प्लेन के अंदर था। वो पिछले 5 साल से लंदन रहता था। आज पूरा 1 महीना हुआ है। जो रिपोर्ट बोलते हैं कि भाई फ्यूल पहुंचा नहीं, वो बात को हम मानते नहीं हैं कि ऐसा नहीं हो सकता इतनी बड़ी चीज़ के अंदर। और हमारी एक ही मांग है कि इसकी निष्पक्षता से जांच हो और इसमें जो भी दोषी पाया जाए उससे कड़ी से कड़ी सजा हो। हमने तो खो दिया, पर और कोई खोने नहीं, ऐसी हमारी मांग है। और कुछ रिपोर्ट है, पर ये रिपोर्ट को हम नहीं मानते कि फ्यूल पहुँचे नहीं, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है। इतनी बड़ी चीज़ में फ्यूल नहीं पहुँचे, ये तो मैं नहीं मानता। बाकी तो अभी जो इसकी जांच हो और निष्पक्षता से जांच हो, वही हमारी मांग है। मेरा नाम मुकेश महेश्वरी। ना ये क्या नाम के हमारा क्या नहीं, कोई पुलिस इंस्पेक्टर थे, हमारा कजीन क्या रहते, एमने मरवा गया था।
क्या ऊपर गया था?
हाँ, क्या तो सहायता के कई काम हो, ब्रिटिश यानी लोकल पुलिस मरवा दी, एम्बेसी में थी,
एम्बेसी दे
Purpose of preliminary AAIB report is very clear. That is, they were to state what happened and what did not happen. Right? What did not happen was that the flaps were in the right position. Aircraft was perfectly healthy on ground. All the maintenance records were checked and they were found to be okay. There was no fuel contamination reported. So what not happened, all the speculations are out. What happened was that aircraft was fully serviceable till 3 seconds after takeoff. At 3rd second and 4th second, between these 2 seconds, both engines failed. They stopped to produce the power. This happened. And we all saw that aircraft after 6-7 seconds, because when the signal goes to shut off the fuel, it takes few seconds for power or the thrust to reduce from 100% to 0. So it will take 3, 4, 5 seconds for the engines to wind down. That means they will continue to give some residual thrust. Okay. So as the aircraft is continuing to climb out because of the inertia and because the power is still there and winding down, that is the time where the pilot asks the other pilot, because he feels there is a loss of power. You can, the 70,000 pounds, 2 engines, they have lost power. So you would feel it. So why did you cut off engine? That is the first thing. He said, I didn't do it. So the pilots confirm that there was a loss. Pilots confirm that it was done without pilot input. Right? The aircraft from the timestamp of 0842 to 0856, that means about 12 seconds, was without power, and the action of the aircraft, actually these are intelligent machines, so they try to relight. Okay. However, if the pilots have identified that the aircraft has lost both dual engine failure, then the memory item action is also there, in which the fuel cutoff switch has to be moved from run to off and then again to on. Okay. So in this whole process, if both the engines have failed, then fuel switches will be cycled off and will be cycled on. That also seems to have come in. The AIB is not conclusive. Why to start with the engine failed? Okay, that is the 3 seconds after takeoff. Okay, because the confusion that it creates is when the statement that says fuel cutoff switch transitioned from run to cutoff. There is nothing like it. 100%, the fuel cutoff switch is a physical switch. It has to be moved from one position to another, and it has to be moved from that position back. There is no automation involved in it. Okay. What automation is involved is the fuel shutoff valve. It has transitioned from run to cutoff or on to off. Okay. If that is what was being recorded, and if AIB meant, then it is a different thing. But fuel switches being moved up and down, okay, automatically does not happen. Okay. So AIB report to that has made some of the answers right. Some of their speculations are out of the window. Pilot action, 100% right. They tried to revive the engine. That is further corroborated with the fact that, there was some movement of the fuel cutoff switch. Okay. The time stamp may be up and down. When did it move physically to run and off? They did it. Okay. But the fact remains that the engine power was lost without pilot input is confirmed.
So given the cockpit voice recording that you have also talked about, I want to understand that during the takeoff, it was the possibility of sabotage or external interference
No.
or anything like that?
There is that sabotage angle is also totally out. Right? The aircraft had right amount of fuel. There was no fuel contamination. There was no maintenance issue. There was all the things are out. Okay. Yes. Why did the engine lose power or thrust? Why did the engine switch off 3 seconds? Okay. Not the right time to answer. But now it is conclusively proven by the report that engines had failed. And why it failed is a subject of investigation, and we will come to it no later. Did pilot move those switches? It is confirmed they did not.
So despite this being the first fatal crash involving a Boeing, the AAIB recommends no action yet. So is that a standard procedure or does it raise safety concerns?
I would understand that 787, despite this fatal accident, continues to be the safest aircraft as per the flight accidents, fatal accidents versus number of hours that it has flown. I think all airlines, and there would be more operators who would now apply their mind, okay, and take action. because AIB cannot really at this stage start to say that what should the whole fleet do.
So what role does the enhanced airborne flight recorder play in uncovering the exact sequence of events, and how soon can we expect conclusive findings?
Okay, so the flight data recorder and the CVR recorder both put together in one box is enhanced flight. Means previously we used to track 256 parameters. Now we track over 1,000. So it's just a hard disk that records everything that the aircraft does. And it is very conclusive in its report. It has already said at what second the power was off. Okay. It records the switch positions also. It records the landing gear switch position. So we see that all the record, entire thing will be built upon the report of the recorder.
सर प्रीलिमिनरी रिपोर्ट आ गई है जिसके हिसाब से जो स्विचेस थी वो बंद हुई या उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम थी जिसकी वजह से इंजन्स में फ्यूल्स नहीं पहुंच पाया, तो इस वजह से प्रॉब्लम हुई। तो मैं सबसे पहले तो ये जानना चाहूंगी कि ये कैसे पॉसिबल है, क्या ये ह्यूमन एरर है, सिस्टम मैल फंक्शन है, क्या पॉसिबिलिटी है सर ऐसा होने की?
अच्छा, AIB रिपोर्ट आ गई है, आपने बताया और मैंने भी उसे पढ़ा है। ये बहुत सारी चीजें तो क्लियर करता है इन द सेंस के पहले स्पेकुलेशन था फ्लैप का पोजीशन क्या था, जहाज सही था या नहीं था, मेंटेनेंस प्रॉब्लम थे कि नहीं थे, तो कोई मेंटेनेंस प्रॉब्लम नहीं था, जहाज का फ्लैप पोजीशन सही था, जहाज के इंजन सही पावर डेवलप कर रहे थे और जहाज सही स्पीड पे रनवे से टेक ऑफ किया। ये सारी चीजें तो क्लियर हो गई। लैंडिंग गियर का लीवर पोजीशन डाउन था, इंजन रन स्विच इस पोजीशन पे था। ये सारी चीजें AIB रिपोर्ट क्लियर करता है और ये कहता है कि 3 सेकंड टेक ऑफ करने के बाद दोनों इंजन के पावर चले गए, राइट। और पायलट जो है जिसने इस चीज को फील किया और एयरक्राफ्ट के परफॉर्मेंस डिटोरिएट होने लगे, स्पीड नहीं बढ़ रहे हैं, तो उसने पूछा कि व्हाई डिड यू कट ऑफ। पायलट ने कहा कि आई डिडंट। इसका मतलब यह हुआ कि एयरक्राफ्ट का जो परफॉर्मेंस डिटोरिएशन हो रहा था पावर लॉस की वजह से, वो पायलट के एक्शन के अलावा हो रहा था। इट वॉजंट बिकॉज ऑफ द पायलट्स एक्शन, है ना। तो उसके बाद फिर 14 सेकंड तक वो इंजन पावर नहीं डेवलप कर रहे थे। उसके बाद रिलाइट होने की कोशिश हुई और जहाज जो है उसी कोशिश करते हुए में चला गया, क्योंकि आइडल में कोई पावर नहीं होता है। और एक इंजन थोड़ा रिकवर किया, दूसरा ये हुआ इसका। और ये जहाज का ऑटोमेटिक फंक्शन है कि इंजन का अगर जो फ्लाइट में पावर खत्म हो जाए तो वो खुद भी रिलाइट करता है। हाँ, पायलट का मेमोरी आइटम होता है कि अगर जो दोनों इंजन फेल कर जाएं तो उसको रिकवर करने के लिए एक एक करके उस फ्यूल कट ऑफ स्विच को रन से कट ऑफ करेगा और उसके बाद फिर उसको ऑन करेगा। इस रिपोर्ट से यह पता चलता है कि वो स्विच भी रिसाइकिल हुआ, ठीक है। लेकिन ये स्विच, ये जो रिपोर्ट है ये इस कंफ्यूजन को बढ़ाता है कि फ्यूल कट ऑफ स्विच ट्रांजिशनड फ्रॉम रन टू कट ऑफ। मेरे हिसाब से इट मेक्स नो सेंस। इट इज नॉट अ पॉसिबिलिटी that the fuel cutoff switch can transition from run to cutoff on its own. वो अपने से नहीं हो सकता है, ठीक है। Maybe they want to say, or what they should have said, and what is actually conclusive, what they could have said is that the fuel shut-off valve, वो जो valve है वो बंद हो गया 3 सेकेंड आफ्टर टेक ऑफ, और वो 10-12 सेकेंड के बाद खुलने बंद होने की पोजीशन में, तो ट्राइंग टू बी इन द राइट पोजीशन। वो हो सकता है, लेकिन ये स्विच आगे पीछे हो रहा है ऑन इट्स ओन, ये पॉसिबल नहीं है, ठीक है। लेकिन द लैंग्वेज जो यूज हुआ है AIB में, वो ये कंफ्यूजन क्रिएट करता है कि शायद इस स्विच को ऑपरेट किया जा रहा था इंजन को बंद करने के लिए या इंजन को स्टार्ट करने के लिए। ये ऑटोमेटिकली ए ट्रांजिशन, व्हेन यू से समथिंग ट्रांजिशन फ्रॉम हेयर टू हेयर, ओके, वो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है। वो स्विच जो है जहां पे होता है वहां से उसको अगर कोई मूव करेगा तभी वो अपनी जगह से हिलेगा, वो अपने से नहीं हिल सकता है।
सर, इसके अलावा फ्यूल की क्वालिटी जो है वो क्लियर हुई थी डीजीसीए लैब्स में, तो मैं जानना चाहूंगी कि क्या पॉसिबिलिटी हो सकती है जिसकी वजह से ये ड्यूल इंजन फेलियर हुआ?
नहीं, फ्यूल कंटामिनेशन का कोई यहां पे रोल नहीं है, क्योंकि फ्यूल कंटामिनेशन जैसे मैंने पहले ही बताया था, फ्यूल कंटामिनेशन होने से एक इंजन अभी फेल करेगा, दूसरा 10 मिनट के बाद करेगा, आधे घंटे के बाद करेगा, नहीं करेगा। यहां पे तो विद इन 1 सेकेंड, इन अ स्प्लिट ऑफ अ सेकेंड, बोथ इंजन्स रिसीव्ड द सिग्नल टू कट इटसेल्फ। So there is no confusion that there was fuel contamination, there was any question of sabotage. ये सारी चीजें is out of the window. AIB has to investigation has to be there. Why the engine power was shut down at 3rd second of the takeoff? वो क्यों 3 सेकंड तक तो ठीक था, पायलट का कोई एक्शन नहीं होता है 3 सेकंड में कि जाके उसको बंद कर दे। ठीक है, ये चीज के पायलट जो है जैसे एयरबॉर्न हुआ उसने इंजन बंद कर दिया, अगर कोई ऐसा इंप्लाई करता है तो वो तो डायरेक्टली सुसाइड की बात कर रहा है। ठीक है, और ऐसा कौन सा सुसाइड होगा जिसमें कि वो सुसाइड करना भी चाह रहा है, मेडे भी बोल रहा है उसको, ये तो आई डोंट थिंक देयर इज एनी इंटेंशनल किसी तरह से जानबूझ करके इंजन को बंद करने की प्रक्रिया शुरू की गई कॉकपिट में, इसका कोई इसे AIB रिपोर्ट से पता नहीं चलता है। ठीक है, और पायलट्स के जो एक्शंस थे वो 100% सही नजर आते हैं, और मेरे हिसाब से AIB की जो प्रिलिमिनरी रिपोर्ट है वो कंक्लूसिव है कि एयरक्राफ्ट का इंजन पावर लॉस हुआ था। क्यों हुआ था वो हमें बाद में पता चलेगा, लेकिन हुआ था ये कंफर्म्ड है।
सर, एक आखिरी सवाल लेना चाहूंगी। हम जानना चाहेंगे कि जो इनहांस्ड एयरबॉर्न फ्लाइट रिकॉर्डर है इसका रोल क्या होता है और कब तक हमें कंक्लूसिव रिपोर्ट्स जो है वो मिल जाएंगी?
देखिए, इनहैंस्ड फ्लाइट डेटा रिकॉर्डर जो है ये फार, ठीक है, ये ब्लैक बॉक्स का ही नया नाम है जिसमें कि नाउ हार्ड डिस्क होते हैं जिसमें सारी चीजें आप रिकॉर्ड करते हैं और इसका डेटा डाउनलोड हो गया है। उस डेटा को आप बहुत आसानी से पढ़ सकते हैं। वो उसका एक कॉपी बोइंग को चला गया होगा, जीई को चला गया होगा, FAA को चला गया होगा, DGCA को चला गया होगा, ठीक है, या AAIB खुद उसको डिकोड कर सकता है। तो हमारे पास सारा इंफॉर्मेशन है कि किस सेकंड में क्या हुआ था, एयरक्राफ्ट के हेल्थ क्या थे, एयरक्राफ्ट के इंजन पैरामीटर्स क्या थे, वो सारी चीजें हमें पता है। ठीक है, तो इसके बेसिस पे ये FR सिर्फ ये बता सकता है क्या हुआ, वो क्यों हुआ नहीं बता सकता, वो तो फिर रिपोर्ट की बात है। ठीक है, सबसे आसान तो यही है कि ये पायलट एरर था, ठीक है, डजंट अपीयर टू बी सो, ठीक है, क्योंकि वो स्विचेस खुद मूव नहीं करते हैं, ये ट्रू है। अगर वो मूव कर गए हैं तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल आता है कि वाई वुड दे ट्राई टू किल देमसेल्व्स, ओके, एंड अगर वो स्विच ऑटोमेटिकली मूव करते हैं, ऐसा कोई फंक्शनैलिटी उस स्विच में नहीं है, उसका कोई लॉक मैकेनिज्म फेल हो जाए, ये हो जाए, वो ऑन से ऑफ नहीं होगा, ऑफ से ऑन नहीं होगा, वो खुद नहीं होता ये चीज। ठीक है, तो द सिग्नल दैट इज वाज बीइंग ट्रांसमिटेड, जो सिस्टम को सिग्नल दिया जा रहा था, उसमें कमी नजर आती है और ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय होगा।
सबसे पहले तो उसका एक बेसिक रिपोर्ट के बारे में बताएं, उसको आप कैसे देखते हैं?
हाँ, बेसिक रिपोर्ट जो अभी आती है 30 डेज के अंदर, एक तो वो कट टू कट 30 डेज पे आई है, तो उसमें बेसिकली ये बताया गया कि उस दिन क्या क्या हुआ, एयरक्राफ्ट कौन सा था, कहाँ से आया, क्या उसमें डिफेक्ट्स पाए गए थे, पायलट्स का एक्सपीरियंस क्या था, एंड उन्होंने अपना कितने रेस्ट था उनके पास, किस टैक्सी वे पे थे, कहाँ से टेक ऑफ किया, क्या स्पीड आई, कितनी हाइट तक गए, तो एक बेसिक आया। दूसरा, जब क्रैश हुआ तो एयरक्राफ्ट के कौन कौन से पार्ट्स किस कंडीशन में इन्वेस्टिगेटर्स को मिले, इन्वेस्टिगेटर्स कौन कौन है। तो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि अब देखेंगे कि जो फ्लैप वाली थ्योरी थी वो खत्म हो गई, रैट निकला है कि नहीं वो कंफर्म होगा कि रैट निकला था, थ्रस्ट लीवर्स किस पोजीशन पे थे क्रैश में, और बाकी चीजें। तो मतलब उस दिन क्या क्या हुआ वो उसमें मेंशन है, लेकिन एक्सीडेंट क्यों हुआ वो जब मेन रिपोर्ट आएगी उसमें तो आई थिंक काफी टाइम लग जाता है, साल 2 साल लग जाता है, वो उसके बाद में आएगी।
अच्छा, अब
इस पूरे रिपोर्ट में कुछ कुछ चीजें हैं जिन पर बहुत चर्चा हो रही है, जिन पर बहुत बात हो रही है, लगातार उस पर डिस्कशन चल रहा है। वो ये सबसे पहले तो जो फ्यूल की बात की जा रही है कि स्विचेस कट ऑफ थे, कैसे ये वर्क करता है, क्या ये मिड एयर प्रॉब्लम है, मैनुअली वर्क करता है, या ये सॉफ्टवेयर वर्किंग है, क्या कुछ होता है, कैसे फ्यूल जाता है इंजन?
जी देखिए, जो रिपोर्ट में है फ्यूल कट ऑफ के बारे में ही थोड़ा बात की गई है, तो अभी इससे ये अनुमान लगाया जा सकता है कि समथिंग वेंट रॉन्ग विद द फ्यूल कट ऑफ स्विचेस, क्योंकि वहीं पे एक डायरेक्शन दी गई है इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन को। तो फ्यूल बेसिकली देखिए, कोई भी एयरक्राफ्ट कैसे काम करता है, आप फ्यूल इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं, एक कंबशन होता है, फ्यूल इग्नाइट होता है, प्रेशर बनता है, वो फिर हाई प्रेशर से पीछे से निकलता है, एंड देन दैट्स हाउ द इंजन जनरेट थ्रस्ट। तो अगर आप बेसिक चीज है फ्यूल और इग्निशन, तो फ्यूल ही काट देंगे तो इंजन तो बंद हो गया आपका। तो उसमें वही बताया गया है कि यार फ्यूल कट ऑफ स्विच था, वो रन से कट ऑफ में आ गया। रन मतलब फ्यूज जा रहा है और कट ऑफ मतलब आपने काट दिया उसको। तो आपके जो पायलट के पास भी थ्रस्ट लीवर्स होते हैं और इंजन के कंट्रोल होते हैं, तो यू आर कंट्रोलिंग दी कितना फ्यूल जा रहा है उसमें। तो उसमें रिपोर्ट में जो लिखा गया है कि हाँ वो रन से कट ऑफ में गए, और 10 सेकंड बाद कह रहा है कि कट ऑफ से रन में आ गए। अब ये कंफ्यूजन उन्होंने छोड़ दिया कि उसमें लिखा है वन ऑफ द पायलट्स आस्क्ड द अदर कि तुमने मैनुअली किया कि नहीं। वो कहता नहीं, मैंने मैनुअली नहीं किया। तो इतना भी कंफर्म होगा कि यार उसको अंदेशा हुआ कि मैनुअली हुआ, उसने कंफर्म किया नहीं हुआ। नाउ अब कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन होती है ना ऐसे कि पायलट्स को नहीं दी जाती, तो मैन्युफैक्चरर बोलता है कि यार इतनी इन्फॉर्मेशन है, आपको जरूरी नहीं है। बहुत चीजें बोइंग और एयरबस ऐसी बनाते हैं जो कि एयरक्राफ्ट खुद ही करता है, कुछ पायलट्स के लिए होती है, कुछ इंजीनियर्स के लिए होती है, और कुछ मतलब लिखी होती है बट आपके लिए जाननी जरूरी नहीं है। तो अब वो क्या बोइंग ने ऑटोमेटिक उसको कट कर दिया, वापस इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया। तो वो जब डीप इन्वेस्टिगेशन होगी इसके बारे में तब पता चलेगा। हालांकि पायलट्स के पास भी स्विच होता है, और आई एम श्योर एयरक्राफ्ट का जो इंटरनल लॉजिक है, क्योंकि एयरक्राफ्ट आर वेरी स्मार्ट, एयरक्राफ्ट का इंटरनल लॉजिक भी उसको कंट्रोल करता होगा। उसमें लिखा है कि वो ग्राउंड से एयर मोड पे आ गया। तो बट अब एक्चुअली क्या हुआ है, किसने किया है, इट्स अ बिग ओनस ऑन द मैन्युफैक्चरर ऑल्सो नाउ। उसकी भी जवाबदेही काफी बन जाती है।
अच्छा, इसमें सर वॉल्व की भी चर्चा चल रही है, वो क्या होता है, कैसे वो करता है, क्या इन्वॉल्वमेंट है?
तो जब आप कोई स्विच कंट्रोल करते हैं, बेसिकली वॉल्व भी कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, उसकी वॉल्व को खोल रहे हैं या बंद कर रहे हैं स्विच को। तो जब आप रन पोजीशन में तो वॉल्व खुली हुई है, फ्यूल फ्लो कर रहा है। जब कट ऑफ पोजीशन में तो वॉल्व बंद कर दी, फ्यूल वहां बंद हो गया। अब दुख की बात यह है कि जिस रिपोर्ट में लिखा है कि रन से कट ऑफ गया, जैसे उसने टेक ऑफ किया, हमें जबकि देखिए ऐसा लग रहा था कि शुरू में जब देखा हमने वीडियो कि काफी दूर तक गया, फिर इंजन फेल हुआ। उसमें लिखा है नहीं, उसने एयरपोर्ट की पेरीमीटर वॉल भी क्रॉस नहीं की थी। 180 नॉट्स पे वो रन से कट ऑफ में चला गया। 155 पे लिफ्ट ऑफ हुआ, स्पीड बिल्ड हुई 180 पे वो कट हो गया। एयरपोर्ट की पेरीमीटर वॉल भी क्रॉस नहीं हुई थी। बिकॉज ऑफ द इनर्शिया इट गेन्ड लिटिल ऑल्टीट्यूड, क्योंकि थोड़ी एनर्जी होती है आप में, एनर्जी लूज करते करते टाइम लगता है। उस एनर्जी से भी आप कार में एकदम से एक्सीलेटर छोड़ेंगे तो गाड़ी रुक थोड़ा जाएगी, थोड़ी आगे जाती है ना। तो इनर्शिया से ऊपर गया एंड देन वो कट ऑफ हुआ। 10 सेकंड के बाद दोबारा आ भी गया। एयरक्राफ्ट फेडेक जो होता है, फुल अथॉरिटी डिजिटल इंजन कंट्रोल, वो एक समझ लीजिए एक तरीके के इंजन का माइंड है। वो सारी चीजें कंट्रोल करता है। पायलट जब इंजन स्टार्ट करते हैं तो हम दो चीजें करते हैं, मतलब मैं अपने एयरक्राफ्ट की बता रहा हूँ, इग्निशन ऑन ताकि उस कंप्यूटर को पावर जाए, और मास्टर स्विच ऑन। दो काम करते हैं हम नॉर्मल इंजन स्टार्ट में, बाकी सब फेडेक करता है। कब फ्यूल डालना है, कितना टेम्परेचर है, ईजीटी मेजर करेगा। इट्स लाइक समझ लो आप एआई। तो फेडेक ने दोबारा जब फ्यूल शट ऑफ आया रन पोजीशन में, दोबारा उसने इंजन रीलाइट किया, डिसेलरेशन स्टॉप भी हुआ, उसने फाइट भी मारा, बट आई थिंक टाइम वाज टू लेस, वो स्टार्ट नहीं कर पाया। एंड देन जब इनर्शिया था, जब कटा ऊपर गया ना, जब नीचे आया तब भी इनर्शिया काम कर गया, वो इट क्रैश्ड।
अच्छा, इन सब के बावजूद AAIB ने एडवाइस किया है कि अभी कोई इमीडिएट सेफ्टी एक्शन नहीं है। ये क्या एक स्टैंडर्ड प्रैक्टिस है या कंसर्न रेज करती है कि जो वल्नरेबिलिटीज एयरक्राफ्ट के आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं?
देखिए, हाँ, एज अ पर्सनल सजेशन मुझे तो लगता है कि इसमें बोइंग को जरूर सामने आके कुछ क्लैरिफिकेशन देनी चाहिए ताकि लोगों का ट्रस्ट थोड़ा सा बने। क्योंकि जब 737 का MCAS का भी इशू आया था, अब एकदम से ये आ गया, तो बोइंग हैज बीन इनटू सम इश्यूज सिंस लास्ट 6, 7, 8 years। तो अब एक्चुअली जब इस रिपोर्ट में भी साफ नहीं हुआ कि पायलट ने किया है कि सॉफ्टवेयर ने किया है, और ये लिखा हुआ है कंफर्म कि पायलट ने बोला उसको, क्योंकि अगर सिर्फ पायलट गलती से कर भी देगा ना, वो ऑन ऑफ 10 सेकंड में करना मुश्किल है। अगर काट देगा, वो कहेगा हाँ ठीक है करता हूँ, दोबारा कर देगा। तो बट ऑन ऑफ दोबारा हुआ, तो ज्यादा प्रोबेबिलिटी ऐसा लग रहा है कि कुछ सिस्टम एयरक्राफ्ट का था ऐसा कि सॉफ्टवेयर ऐसा था कि उसने कट करके ऑन किया, कुछ किया।
Any engine start procedure, whether it's in the Boeings or in the 777s, or for that matter 787s, it has to be done manually. But once that action is initiated, the process of engine start begins, and you have to put the lever at a given position, which is a usual practice. And it is unthinkable, and as evident from the report, it is unthinkable that at a given point of time, both the switches can be retracted. Here, the captain has checked with the first officer, saying that, has the switch been switched off? He said no. That means when he saw the engine power coming down, or the engine flame out, Captain Sabrawal, late Captain Sabrawal, who is supposed to be a fantastic pilot, a very experienced pilot, he initiated the actions when both the engines flame out. And that has been given in the report. When both engines flame out, there is an action that the switches have been flicked back to on, which sends an indication to the FedEx to relight the engine. There is also a fact that once this step has been taken, the engine relit process has begun, and the engines have started showing power which was generated in left engine and subsequently in the right engine. But the height or the speed of the aircraft was not good enough to continue with the flight path or the lift, and ultimately it was coming down and it crashed. So I think this aspect, which has somehow been now refigured and being interpreted, has been clarified by the AAIB, and we know the process how it has happened. We know the things what happened, but we still need to find out if at all both the engines had flamed out, for which there is an ample proof that the RAT had deployed and the auxiliary power unit had automatically started the engines. That means the auxiliary power engine which generates power for the aircraft. So if these two things happen, it's an ample indication that the engines have lost power. So if that has happened, why did the engine lose power at the takeoff point is one question which possibly will get addressed in course of time.
So the cockpit audio shows pilot confusion. So does this suggest miscommunication or?
Absolutely wrong. There is no, it's a call and a confirmation which captain has sought with other, and physically he must have also seen that it's not the truth. So in that situation, it cannot happen what is being mentioned. So there's no pilot confusion. In a span of 30 seconds, I would appreciate the action on the part of the senior commanders to have initiated an action to restart the engine by flicking the fuel control switches.
सर जिस हिसाब से बात करें स्विच बंद होने की बात सामने है, क्या ये मैनुअली मतलब ये आपको लगता है कि ह्यूमन एरर है या ये चीज जो है किसी फॉल्ट की वजह से हो सकती है, क्या रीजंस है?
देखिए, प्रारंभिक प्रतिवेदन में जो दिख रहा है इसमें दो बातें स्पष्ट है। विमान आसमान में गया, विमान की गति 180 नॉट तक पहुंच गई, और उसके बाद विमान, इसमें स्पष्ट रूप से दिया हुआ है कि स्विच ऑन था, विमान टेक ऑफ किया, सामान्य रूप से गति बढ़ी, 180 नॉट तक गया। उसके बाद दो चीजें हुई विमान में। एक, कप्तान ने पूछा कि इंजन फ्यूल कंट्रोल स्विच, दूसरे कप्तान ने कहा कि नहीं, बिल्कुल वैसे ही है जैसे था। इसी क्षण कप्तान ने देखा कि मेरे इंजन का पावर कम हो रहा है। उसको एहसास हो गया कि दोनों इंजन, कभी भी दुनिया में दो इंजन एक साथ बंद नहीं हो सकते, ऐसा माना जाता है। उन्होंने पावर और इंजन फेलियर का भी सिचुएशन देखा। उसके बाद जो उसका करेक्टिव एक्शन है, जो मेमोरी आइटम है, वो किताब से पढ़ करके, सामान्य रूप से विमान के भीतर हमेशा चेकलिस्ट का हम उपयोग करते हैं। इस केस में वक्त नहीं होता है तो इमरजेंसी में हम मेमोरी आइटम पर जाते हैं, जो याददाश्त है, उसको मेमोरी आइटम ही कहा जाता है। और मेमोरी आइटम में स्विच ऑफ ऑन करने पर इंजन को यह संवाद मिल जाता है कि हमें, मेरा इंजन बंद हो गया था और मुझे तुरंत इसको चालू करना। और फेडेक के थ्रू उसका जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंट्रोल कंप्यूटर सिस्टम है, उसके माध्यम से फिर इंजन, और इस विमान में टेक ऑफ के बाद इंजन चालू होने की प्रक्रिया प्रारंभ हो गई थी। ये दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है कि इतनी बड़ी हादसा हुई, क्योंकि ऊंचाई नहीं थी, गति नहीं थी और सामने बाधा भी था। बहुत ही दुखद, परंतु जो तथ्य उभर के आए हैं, ये कैसे हुआ, कहां हुआ, कब हुआ, कितने समय में हुआ, ये सब है। क्या क्या विमान के भीतर हुआ, ये भी समय है। कप्तान ने क्या क्या कदम उठाए, ये भी हुए। एक सवाल छूट जा रहा है, क्यों इंजन बंद हुआ, जिसका प्रमाण उन लोगों ने दिया है। इंजन बंद हुए, क्यों बंद हुआ, शायद ये विश्लेषण अभी भी आवश्यकता है।
देखिए, ये जो प्रीलिमिनरी रिपोर्ट आई है, इसमें उन्होंने सिर्फ जहाज और पायलट्स की डिटेल दी है। क्रैश के बारे में इन्होंने कुछ नहीं ज्यादा बताया, क्या रीजन क्या था इसका। मौसम के बारे में, एयरपोर्ट के बारे में काफी कुछ लिखा है। अब ये रिपोर्ट जाएगी, जो सेक्रेटरी हाई लेवल कमेटी गवर्नमेंट ने अपॉइंट करी है, लाइक सेक्रेटरी ऑफ होम अफेयर, सेक्रेटरी सिविल एविएशन, ब्यूरो ऑफ सिविल एविएशन सिक्योरिटी, जो के पास इशू करती है एयरपोर्ट वाले, पुलिस कमीशन, उनके पास जाएगी। वो बड़े तजर्बेकार, एक्सपीरियंस हैं, उनके पास फ्लाइंग एक्सपीरियंस भी होगा, और वो इस रिपोर्ट को स्टडी करने के बाद इसको रिपोर्ट को अप्रूव करेंगे या नहीं अप्रूव करेंगे। और दूसरी जो जहाज के क्रैश के बारे रिपोर्ट है, वो अभी इसमें कुछ नहीं आई। लेकिन हम ये चाहते थे कि ये जो इंक्वायरी है, या तो पब्लिक इंक्वायरी या जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी होनी चाहिए, जिसमें सब पब्लिक आदमी या प्रोफेशनल वेटरन जो भी आके इनसे सवालात कर सके। अब ये अपनी इंडोर इंक्वायरी कर रहे हैं, इसके अंदर ना तो DFDR ना कॉर्पोरेट वाइज रिगार्डर किसी पब्लिक आदमी को एक्सपोज नहीं करेंगे। ये सारी चीजें सीक्रेट रख के ये रिपोर्ट बनाएंगे। उसके बारे में देखना पड़ेगा कि बोइंग के अगेंस्ट कहते हैं या एयर इंडिया के अगेंस्ट बोलते हैं। और जो मेरी जहां तक हमारी सूझ समझ है, ये पायलट के ऊपर ये सारा मलबा डाल जाएगा, क्योंकि वो मरे आदमी तो उठते नहीं है। और ये जितनी रिपोर्ट पायलट के ऊपर आ जाए, ये उसने ये स्विच ऑफ कर दिया, वो कर दिया, इसके पीछे भी टेक्निकल है। मैं आप टीवी पे नहीं वो चीजें डिस्कस कर सकता। ये तो सिर्फ जब पब्लिक या जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी होगी, उसमें हम ये बताएंगे कि फ्यूल ऑफ करने से क्या होता है जहाज में, क्या रिएक्शन होता है जहाज का, वो देखना पड़ेगा। बाकी अभी ये तो रिपोर्ट प्रीलिमिनरी रिपोर्ट है, इसमें तो कोई खास नहीं। जहाज की डिटेल दी है, उसको पब्लिश से क्या मतलब है।
जो बड़ी हाईलाइट इसमें निकल कर आ रही है, उसमें कहा जा रहा है कि जो वो स्विचेस जो थे, जो फ्यूल फीड करते थे दोनों इंजन को, वो कट ऑफ थे।
देखिए, वो फ्यूल कटा हुए है, उसका रिएक्शन होता है एयरक्राफ्ट के ऊपर। वो DFDR जो है, जिसको ब्लैक बॉक्स कहते हैं, उसमें पहले जब मैं बोइंग उड़ाता उससे सिर्फ 4 रीडिंग आती थी, हाइट, हेडिंग, स्पीड और लैंडिंग टच ऑन कितनी स्पीड से करा। लेकिन आजकल जो मॉडर्न हाईटेक जहाज है, इनमें 100 से 200 से ज्यादा रीडिंग रिकॉर्ड होती है। पायलट की सीट की पोजीशन क्या थी, फ्यूल लीवर की पोजीशन क्या थी, इंजन की क्या पोजीशन थी, इंजन की पावर कितनी आ रही थी, फ्यूल फ्लो कितना था, वो सारी चीजें इसके अंदर डिजिटल फ्लाइट रिकॉर्डर में आ जाएगी। अब वो ये पब्लिक तो करेंगे नहीं, ये अपनी रिपोर्ट उसके ऊपर बना के देंगे, जिसमें कि ना तो बोइंग ना एयर इंडिया के अगेंस्ट ये कुछ कहेंगे। अब ये फाइनल रिपोर्ट आने के बाद ही एक्चुअली प्रोफेशनल कमेंट्स जो है उसका कोई मतलब बनेगा। अभी कुछ कहना, अंदाजे से कहना ठीक नहीं रहेगा हमारे लिए, क्योंकि ये प्रीलिमिनरी रिपोर्ट है। ये सिर्फ डिटेल दी है ना, जहाज की और पायलट्स की डिटेल दे रखी है, और इसमें कोई ज्यादा क्रैश के बारे नहीं बताया वो।
Initial thoughts on the likelihood of the crash?
Yes. See, first of all, there has always been a lot of speculation that pilot must have made this mistake. Most of these speculations did not tally from day one, and therefore there was no truth in the rumor that anyone made a mistake. Everything about this aircraft and the flight was perfectly normal till the time he started his takeoff roll. Aircraft was perfectly set up, the pilots were perfectly trained, they were well qualified, so there was absolutely nothing wrong till the aircraft was on the takeoff roll. Immediately after takeoff, what has happened is fuel has been cut off to both engines, so that means both engines have failed simultaneously. Now, normally for that to happen is very unlikely. Maybe one engine might fail, but for both engines to fail, and for what reason, is very, very unlikely. So therefore, what could be the possibilities? That has to be now determined. What's the fact is that both engines actually have failed. Now, whether there was a system failure, whether there was fuel starvation, or whether because of the latest technology and the computer system, etc., that fuel has been denied to the engines, and that is why the engines failed. Or is there a possibility of even sabotage? There is no indication that there was sabotage or something like that, but let's not rule out any possibility. The fact we now have to determine why is it that both the engines failed. That is the main thing to be determined.
So from your experience, how reliable are preliminary reports in painting an accurate picture of an aviation accident?
They're fairly accurate for the simple reason it's not on anyone's opinion. It's not one person's opinion against another person. These are DFDR data. It is something like people keep on misinterpreting or misunderstanding what is all this data about. It's exactly like your computer. You have a large data file and you're downloading the data file. Now, that is one aspect of it. So what is on the DFDR, that is Digital Flight Data Recorder and the Cockpit Voice Recorder, is downloaded. Now, the second part is interpreting this data. That is where specialists have to come in. There are specialists who are aviators, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, engineers, all sorts of people, aircraft engineers, aircraft manufacturers. So they all put their heads together and analyze the data and trying to interpret what could have happened to this particular accident.
Right, sir. So in the preliminary report, there has been a lot of mention about fuel switches, how the two pilots conversed, that one asked if you switched off the fuel switch and the other responded in negative.
No, this has been a total misunderstanding right from the day one about the switches, because people do not understand the technicalities. And they've also said the FAA has given some ruling that the switches should have been tested. Now, all these fuel switches and all these aircraft, whether it's Boeing company or Airbus company, they are so important that it cannot be something like your household switch where you just put the switch off and the fuel gets cut off. There has to be a fail-safe mechanism. So these switches are made fail-safe, that you just cannot just touch it by accident or something and the fuel gets switched off. So therefore, you have to physically do something extra like removing a guard or putting the switch in a particular manner. Only then can your fuel switch be put off or on. So therefore, it is something about the fuel switch that has been said. And obviously, as soon as the aircraft has taken off, and since both engines have failed, the pilot has realized that the engines have failed. So he asks, have you done anything? So the other pilot says, no, I've not done anything, obviously. So obviously they will not touch the switches. But now, since they're mentioning about the switches, and there is different interpretations, did the pilots touch the switches? Yes. And that is as per law, as per requirements. When he found out that both engines have failed and there's total fuel starvation, what he was required to by his duty also and his training also, he has actually for a moment put the switches off. And it takes effort to do it. You just can't, it's not just like a normal switch. So he's taking the guard off, he's put the switches off and put it on again. The moment he puts it on again, what is required to happen is the engine gets rejuvenated, the ignition gets lit up again, the fuel starts flowing again. And that is what the report also states, that when he did that, the ignition happened and one of the engines started picking up. But it's the very fact that it was so low and the other engine hadn't taken time. And all these engines are so large that just by opening power, it doesn't have immediate response. For any aircraft, it takes at least about 8 to 10 seconds from the lower revolutions for the full power to be available. So by the time the engine could have revived also, it is so low, it went and crashed into the buildings, and that's why the accident took place.
So if you could speak to us in length and in a little layman's language for people to understand that, can fuel switches, can they go off in off position because of software, or is it purely mechanical or manual?
No, in all these aircrafts, it is manual where physical action is required by the pilot or whoever is sitting there to either put it on or off. So that is one aspect of it. Second aspect of it, the design of all these aircrafts are so complicated that it's like a system, it's like a full computer where the fuel management system happens. It is like a full management system. Now, things are supposed to happen automatically. Now, because it was not done properly or because that system failed, maybe the fuel management system failed, and that is why the engines were starved of fuel. And it is also possible that someone could have tampered with these this process. So nothing is ruled out at this point in time because it's so vast and so non-clear about why it's happened. It needs to be, all aspects need to be seen.
So you said tampered. Was it before the flight or during the flight?
No, it can happen before the flight.
Right.
Some engineers who are very familiar with the system could have tampered with the system because it is a fuel management system. The system, if a computer is tampered with, it will malfunction. And so when it is going to malfunction, how it is going to malfunction, so that actually amounts to sabotage. So this angle also has to be studied. Is it possible? Possible is there.
So from a pilot's point of view, is there anything in the report that suggests pilot error or misjudgment?
Nothing, not at all. In fact, to the best, you can't point a single thing that the pilot has done which is incorrect. And it is, if you have seen foreign interviewers or some foreign experts who have blamed the pilots from the day one, instead of putting the gear up, they've done this and then that is why this has happened. If you actually go up, analyze all the data also and all the actions of the pilots have done everything as per rules and as per the law, including switching off the fuel which was required and switching it on. But it was too late and they couldn't do anything about it.
So was there any mention of a technical malfunction or maintenance issue that could have contributed? And also following up from your experience flying Air India aircraft, how well maintained were the fleet and their systems?
So all aircrafts are maintained fairly well. And there are systems within systems, it's a fail-safe systems also. If something goes wrong, there's something else that will take over, etc. But when you ask, can these people who are asking on the TV interviews, how is it possible to be sabotaged? Well, Air India has had sabotage. What happened to the aircraft that crashed in Mont Blanc in Switzerland? It was pure sabotage. So no one should rule out the possibility of a sabotage. Whether it actually happened, do not jump to conclusions. Let's go by evidence only, and we'll find out eventually what is likely to happen.
So how would a pilot typically react to that kind of scenario described in the report? Was the crew response standard protocol?
His response were absolutely standard. And the trouble was he had absolutely no time. See, as we've explained, there are various switches which are called squat switches, which designates to all the systems in the aircraft that the aircraft is on the ground. So when the aircraft is on the ground, the oleos are depressed, and the squat switch sends a message to all the computers on the aircraft that the aircraft is on the ground. So when the aircraft gets airborne, the squat switches open up and it gives the signal to the aircraft that now the aircraft is in the air. So that is precisely the time, if you see the timing wise, and this must have happened about at least 3-4 seconds or 5 seconds after getting airborne. And when the signals went up that the aircraft is airborne, if some malfunction has happened, some system in the fuel system has been tampered with or the motherboard has gone wrong, that is possible at that point in time. And because the pilots realized almost immediately, they tried to take corrective action, but there was nothing that they could do. Whatever they could do, they've done.
So do you believe current pilot training and standard SOPs are adequate for handling these kind of situations?
Certainly. They are adequate happen. And from a pilot's point of view, a pilot is taught very well. There are enough simulator checks also, balances, and but there are many more things which has got nothing to do with this accident, which I have always maintained, that you need more education. For example, a pilot is taught how to be a good pilot, how to fly an aircraft, how to fly it safely, but he is not taught how to be a good commander. So this is where some other aspects are coming, like MBA in aviation, some further studies in aviation, which is again has got nothing to do with this crash, but you require more education in the aviation field at all levels.
So what changes would you recommend technologically, procedurally or culturally to prevent similar incidents?
Okay. The preamble of Annexure 13 of the ICAO annexes very clearly, the aim of an investigation is to prevent a recurrence and not to apportion blame. Whereas almost all the crashes that have happened, DGCA inquiry, airport inquiry, they've only found some scapegoat, this is what happened, and then the matter is forgotten, and the prevention aspect doesn't come into the picture at all. Now, what is eventually happening after so many years, for the last 50 years, I have been trying to get the government to have an independent safety board, just the manner in which most of the advanced countries have an independent safety board. They didn't listen for so many years. There was no independent safety board. Eventually, it has now come where you have this AAIB, which is supposed to be independent, but is actually not. It comes under the Ministry of Defense. So it is still not an independent safety board, but at least some improvement is there. Some movement in the right direction is there. I hope it continues, and we do eventually land up with a total independent safety board. And this is, again, not my opinion that I'm expressing. If you see the data given by Flight Safety Foundation, ICAO also, the world accident rate is 1.5 hull losses per million departures. That's the average in the whole world. Good countries that have independent safety boards like Europe, America, Australia, Japan, they have 0.5 to 0.6 hull losses per million departures. Don't ask me how much is India's record because you'll get frightened. So I don't want to mention India's record, but it's certainly not flattering. And therefore, we need to do much more to improve aviation safety and standards in India.
Lastly, sir, you ruled out human error here. So are there just two things that you think, that is, one is sabotage and one is technical?
No one rules out totally anything.
Right.
Human error is possible with the best qualified people. You have human errors in doctors also, and lawyers also, everywhere else. Right. So it is nothing out of the question. But in this particular case, if you are saying is the pilot's responsible, from all the data that is available, from all the information that is available, I do not attribute it to any pilot error, and therefore I would rule out human error only as far as the aviators, pilots are concerned. Human error as far as ground handling is concerned, the engineers are concerned, I don't know. That has to be studied, and you have to come to some conclusions there. So from the pilot's angle, I can say I don't think they have made any mistake.
But there could be technical issue as well?
Yes, of course there could be technical issue.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Point more of human error or systematic fault?
First and foremost, I would like to clarify that there is a degree of ambiguity in that statement. It does not say that the fuel control switches were physically moved from the run to cutoff. It just says that it transitioned from run to cutoff. So, and plus the report also mentions that in the wreckage, the fuel control switches were found to be in the run position. So there is a degree of ambiguity in the report, but I would imagine that there has been no pilot intervention to move the switches from run to cutoff, because this happened immediately after takeoff. There is absolutely no reason for either of the pilots to be coming anywhere close to the switches at that point in time. The pilot flying would have been busy flying the aircraft with both his hands on the control column. The pilot monitoring, in this case possibly the pilot in command, would have been having his left hand on the control column and the right hand on the thrust levers, which is nowhere close to the fuel cutoff switches. And lastly, the fuel control, the cutoff switches would have come into play in the event of a single engine failure after an altitude of 400 feet, once the aircraft is stabilized and the autopilot is on. So I don't think it is possible at all that the pilots themselves have put the switches from run to cutoff, and that too immediately after takeoff. Extremely unlikely.
So the pilot, from the audio box, the pilot were heard saying, "Why did you cut off and I didn't do?" What does this tell us about the awareness and situation in the cockpit?
Okay. In this, as a layman or as a person who listens to this, I would normally think that something has happened in which one of the pilots has done something. But just try and visualize the situation. One pilot is presumably asking the other, did you put the switch from run to cutoff? What does that mean? That means that he himself has not done it, right? That's what it means. The other person is replying that I did not. So what is the end result? Neither of them have done it.
So the ram air turbine deployed and one engine briefly restarted before failing. What did that recovery fail? Why did that recovery fail, and what does it reveal about the emergency?
Okay, just let me explain to you what is a ram air turbine. The ram air turbine deploys automatically under a few conditions. Okay, two of these conditions for automatic deployment is loss of electrical power, as would be indicated by a dual engine failure, and also the loss of or the reduction in hydraulic pressures in all the three systems. In both these cases, the RAT would deploy automatically. So once the system has sensed that there is a failure of this sort, a dual engine failure, and or accompanied by low pressures in all the three hydraulic systems, the RAT would deploy automatically.
So no mechanical fault found yet in Boeing 787 or its fuel system. What should AAIB focus on next to find the root cause of the entire situation?
See, the AAIB has all the data available with them. It has the help of all the technical experts. It has the expertise of Boeing. It has the expertise of GE. It has the expertise of the FAA as well as the aircraft accident, as well as the NTSB. So it has all the data. It has all the help. They're all professionals. They should be able to find out what the root cause was.
Was India aware of earlier warnings on fuel switches, like in 2018 US advisory? Should their maintenance record now come under deeper scrutiny?
I think these systems that are in place are fairly robust. Whenever any technical bulletin comes out, the technical staff, they examine it, and if it is applicable, if any action is applicable, they take the action, and this action is also recorded. From what the report says, whatever action was required to be taken was advisory in nature. It was not mandatory or binding. And this was way back, about 8 years back. And since then, the aircraft has flown so many thousands of hours, and worldwide, the Dreamliners have flown more than 4 million hours. So I don't think this was an issue. This was just something that the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has highlighted because it is connected with the fuel control switch.
So one final question, how do you analyze the entire report? Does it does justice to the preliminary investigation, or it should be more deeper and more clear?
I think the emphasis is on the fact that it is a preliminary report. To me, it appeared to be slightly ambiguous in some places. Perhaps the language could have been clearer. But again, that depends upon the degree of data that is being analyzed, and all these things take time. So I think as a preliminary report, they have analyzed the system fairly well, though it is still ambiguous on some questions, and some questions are awaiting further analysis and a little deeper understanding of what went wrong.
See, now they're basically looking at the fuel control switches. So they have ruled out almost every other thing, and it is certain that both engines shut down, and both engines may have shut down because of the fuel control switches being selected off. Now, how did they go off? Because of a technical defect or some human factor intervention? Because this design of the switch is such that it cannot automatically go from off to on and on to off. This is spring loaded. It has to be pulled up and then moved and released to get locked. So again, we know what happened. Now why it happened will take time, because they have to do a root cause analysis of not just why it happened, what were the contributory causes. Contributory causes could be the organization, could be the lifestyle, society, training, operations. So all these things, how much of pressure was there, how much of fatigue was there. So when an accident happened, it does not happen because of one thing. It is multiple effects which combine together and then result in an accident. So the investigators will look at everything, the logbooks of the people, etc. So that way it has to be a very detailed
investigation.
So how do you see the entire report? You have already mentioned about the fuel switches. So the fuel switches were shut mid-air at the same time. So do we consider it as a system fault or human error? And looking at the entire report, what you can comment?
It is basically, firstly, there's a mechanical issue which is listed in the beginning of the report, that there was a service bulletin issued by FAA that there could be a possibility on the 737s, and the same part is applicable to this aircraft, the 787, that under certain conditions the lock which keeps the fuel control switches either in the on position or off position can get disengaged and inadvertently can move from either position. So that is area of concern. Then human factor would be that if they rule out technical error or mechanical issue, then the only possibility is human error or human factor, wherein one of the pilots or somebody has deliberately pulled the switches and put it to off position. But this was done at a very critical juncture, so it is very difficult to say that this is for sure the reason. So again, there could be n number of cases. So the objective of the investigation is to eliminate all these factors.
So based on the cockpit audio that which shows there was a confusion. So does that suggest that there was a miscommunication, poor coordination, or possible sabotage? You know, because we saw there was, which shows that pilot was confused or something.
There are only two lines of conversation. So the two lines are basically one pilot. They have not identified who is the pilot who's saying that did you switch off the fuel control switches. So ideally they should have. And at what time did they say, and what time did the other person deny? So there is no recording of that. And then again, when the fuel control switches were switched off, from that time till they were switched on, there's a gap of 10 seconds. So what was the communication between the pilots happening during the 10 seconds? What were they doing? And what were the other failures which were happening, which they were dealing with? So all these things have to be analyzed in depth.
So also this is the first fatal crash involving Boeing 787. You were also part of Boeing 777. So but AAIB has advised no immediate safety action. So is that a standard practice, or does it raise concerns about possible gaps in identifying vulnerabilities in the aircraft?
The purpose of this preliminary investigation is that in the initial stages of investigation, if they find something which is important and has to be communicated to the stakeholders, be it the manufacturer or the operator, so that has to be immediately sent out. So the report feels that there is nothing which needs to be sent, even though that service bulletin was not implemented by Air India. So they should implement, so that should have been a recommendation. The emergency locator transmitter, which did not activate, which is a very critical item to find an aircraft if an accident happens in the sea or in the forest somewhere where it is difficult to locate the aircraft. In this case, the ELT failed. Fortunately, the location of the accident was close by, not in a remote position. Otherwise, it would have taken 2 years or more to recover the CVR, DFDR, the black boxes. And had the ELT not been functioning, then it would have been more difficult and more time consuming.
So one last question I have. What does the enhanced airborne flight recorder reveal? And when can we, ideally, when can we expect the clear answers based on your experience in the industry?
So this flight data recorder which is there is duplicated. They have two of them, one in front, one in the rear. So rear one is legal requirement, but that one is powered only till the electrical systems in the aircraft are powered. So they will stop recording once the aircraft has a total blackout. The front one is powered by another bus, another system, which keeps it powered for additional 10 minutes after the total electrical failure. So fortunately the forward one is not damaged, and that has a clearer CVR. So that is a better recording which they have got. The rear one is just duplicated, so if the rear one is damaged also, that doesn't make a difference.
So one last thing. How do you analyze the entire report which is now up? Does the findings in the report does justice to the entire matter, or there should be more detailed discussion or investigation to it?
There should have been more details given in the preliminary report, like in other reports, like the Ethiopian accident. They have a 33-page report. Ours is only a 15-page report, but there is no flight data recorder. Transcript of the CVR is not given. Only bits and pieces of information are given, and we are expected to analyze ourselves. So that is not the intent. If you want help from the industry, then you have to, and transparency and fairness, then you have to give the data in the preliminary report, which this report has.